Hi, welcome to another episode of the Financial Armor Show. My name is Brad Cooper, the president of Cooper Financial Investments. Welcome today, and I want to welcome my awesome, amazing co-host, Tony Shore. Hi, Tony. How are you doing
Hey,
today?
Brad. I'm doing great. We're going to have a great show today. I'm
Yes.
excited. We were talking before the show, and once again, a huge get for the show. I don't know how you come up with these guests. You get the A-listers all the time. Actor, attorney, estate planning guru. You've got a great one lined up for us today. This is fantastic. And very few people can pull off the role that he's going to play. We're going to ask CJ about that coming up. But we've got a special guest for
Yes,
our
we do.
listeners today. I've been great. My wife got to spend some time with my kids, stopped by this weekend, and my wife and I went out to eat with the
Great.
kids. We got a lot done, did some spring cleaning. So I'm excited. Brad, how about you? Now, you've been really busy, haven't you?
We've been busy, very thankful, very blessed within our company, but also, a big dose of life as well that we all have experienced. And a lot of our clients are going through this now. And if not, they've been through it or will go through it. Just aging parents,
Yeah.
aging clients, and holding their hand and working through the process. And I'm real excited, about the topics today we're going to be covering because in my opinion, and CJ may tell us different, I don't hear this topic being talked about enough and really not too much as far as how to be proactive, stop procrastinating when it comes to estate planning. And we're going to get into some details and specifics that we could probably make a series out of this topic today, but
Oh,
we'll
for
get
sure.
through what we can. But doing great. We're in March now, and I just looked at the forecast, Tony. You're in Minnesota. CJ and I are in the sunny state of Arizona. It's going to be in the mid 90s this week.
Stop. It was
I
like
know.
26 degrees here when I got up this morning in beautiful Minnesota. But you guys are great. Now, Brad, introduce our guest. Tell us about our guest.
Yes, I'm real excited to have our guest on, CJ Eagar. He is the president and owner of Copper Canyon Law. I met CJ about 10 years ago, and I talk a lot about this in speaking engagements and meetings, and very sincere. It took me 20 years to find an attorney, Tony, that I trust, and one that really doesn't act like other attorneys and really doesn't even like other attorneys. I'm exaggerating, CJ,
And
a
20
little bit.
years is about 10 years, 10 years less than it takes most people to find an attorney they can trust.
Right. And
That's
to
right.
find an attorney that shares the same morals, the same values, that pours into your clients the way that, you would want him to take care of your parents, your siblings, and the relationships being great, but also important, just the type of person CJ is, his expertise. He's been doing this industry for over 15 years, ASU graduate, and we have had the privilege, especially the last probably 6 or 7 months, of doing many, many, many speaking engagements, seminars on the topic of estate planning and tax planning, which is done very well, and the message and the education we're giving is great. So, CJ, thank you so much for taking out a few minutes of your crazy busy day. And
I am glad to be here. I always glad to visit with you guys. I tell everyone I'm the most boring guy on earth because I actually enjoy talking about this stuff. So happy to be here and talking. Maybe give some tips and tricks that we're seeing on our end of the table for sure.
yeah, so, well, Tony mentioned something at the intro of the meeting, which, we got to knock out this first. This
Yeah.
is the most important.
Hmm.
An attorney, CJ, being an actor, what's that all about? And maybe put a plug in to our
For sure.
listeners who are, the majority are from Arizona that,
Yeah.
may be interested.
So many don't know that the Arizona history here in the East Valley of Mesa, where I live, there is a big Mesa temple that is in downtown Mesa. Well, it's a big Christian event. The week leading up to Easter, this big Easter pageant production gets put on. Whatever scale you're thinking of in your mind, multiply it by about 20. It is massive. The cast is over 500 people, over 100,000 people come each year. And let's clarify really quick. I am not a professional actor. I actually, my daughter is part of the cast, and she twisted my arm to have me come join. So I thought I was just going to be part of the 500, right? This multitude of people that were helping as supporting cast. Well, long story short, through some weird chain of events, I got pushed or lovingly coerced into playing the role of Jesus in this pageant, which just hilarious, right? I feel honored and embarrassed all at once because I have a little imposter syndrome right now. So, but that's what I'm doing. So that's actually starts. So if you look up Mesa Easter Pageant.com or something like that, you'll see the production, and it's free to the public. You can just walk up, and there's 20,000 chairs out there every night. They estimate over 100,000 people every year. It's crazy. So that's what I'm doing.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
And regardless of what denomination, what church you go to, it's, all put together by, many people in the valley. Which
hundreds of non-denominational Christian churches.
Wow.
They all come together for this. This is not like a one church thing. Every night, a different pastor or minister gets up and gives an invocation. So just very non-threatening, a huge community event that comes together.
I remember when I lived in Southern California, CJ, the Crystal Cathedral there in Anaheim would have a huge Easter pageant, and they actually had live camels and sheep. Does that presentation have live animals?
Every year, Jesus rides in on an actual donkey. So there you have it. Yep, a full cast of live animals. That's production, amazing. You just wouldn't believe the production. Every year, I'm blown away with it.
That's amazing. It's probably a step up from when we'd go see the Easter play at our church, and it was the grade schoolers. Yeah, it was like K through 6.
Right, where one of the kindergartners is the camel, right?
Well, and my daughter was a sheep.
Yeah,
so she knew acting was her calling when all she could land is one of the
That's
sheep.
right.
But
I love it.
Yeah, so that's great, but that's really
the beard.
amazing.
So forgive me as I look like a caveman here, but I as I tell everyone, I'm trying to be like Jesus. That's it, right? So.
Well, too,
hopefully in more ways than one.
That's right.
Hopefully in more ways than one, you're trying to be Christ-like. That would be good. Yeah.
And probably what our listeners don't realize is, as you listen today, and if you decide to meet with CJ in the future for your estate planning meets, you're not going to get CJ Eagar, you're going to get Jesus as well. So how much better can that be?
That's true. I have a ton of clients who are saying I'm going to this thing, and one of them said they're going to bring a sign that says Jesus is my lawyer. So we'll see.
Jesus is my lawyer.
That's right.
Something you don't normally see at the Easter pageant is a heckler, but I'm thinking now that I know you're in it, you have your big line, I might have one of those little air horns and a can is stand up. I think that would be fun. No, I'm kidding. That's almost sacrilegious. It sounds like a beautiful production. But Brad, what are your questions for CJ today? Because you've been going through it. I've been going through it with aging parents and seeing what should have been done in advance and what wasn't.
Right. There's probably 2 big red flags that CJ and I have seen the last several years. And the first area, CJ, I want you to talk about, because we see this on a regular basis. You could share over probably the next, several weeks, story after story after story, or nightmare after nightmare of stop delaying. Do not delay or put off your estate plan or procrastinate. So let's talk about that for a little bit, CJ, on why. And do you get a lot of phone calls, by the way, of CJ, we need your help. My parent or my sibling just had a stroke and they're unconscious. Can you help?
It's interesting. I don't hardly do any advertising for our law firm, but I told my staff, I said, if I ever do, it will be a billboard somewhere in an airport. Because you would not believe how many text messages I get from people waiting to get on a plane, and they start thinking of this like, oh, wait a minute.
Right.
What happens if this plane doesn't make it? And before you know it, they're texting, does this text act like a will? That's just not the time before your tropical vacation to all of a sudden have this panic attack of what if. Let's make those methodical decisions well in advance. Brad has heard me say this a dozen times. There is no secret. Are you ready for this, listeners? You are going to die. It's just, that's the fact. 100% of listeners today are going to die, and so you can either do it or not. But I'm telling you, those who don't plan in advance, they end up having a very traumatic, scarring event on their family. I was telling Brad earlier that I was just on vacation with my family. I took my little 3-year-old daughter to Disneyland, having the time of her life, right?
Oh
I mean,
my
it was so fun.
goodness.
Well, right in the middle of meeting Minnie Mouse or something like that, I get a frantic text message from a client who got my number, and they said, my mother just got rushed to hospice. There is lots of drama and problems in our family. If we don't get a will done, it is going to be World War III. We have to have this done now. So I stepped off to the side, jumped on the phone with one of my attorneys that was back here at home. They started whipping a will into shape as fast as possible for this client. Well, somewhere along the way, within the next 12, 14 hours, the client went to hospice and they said, you know what, your mom probably still has a few weeks. She's not going to go tomorrow or anything like that. The client called me and said, you know what, hold off on that will. The doctor said she probably isn't going to die tomorrow, so go ahead and hold off. And I just died from laughter, like, so that we can just do this all over again in 3 weeks from now. I mean,
Right.
how close of a call do you want to make this thing?
Yeah,
It's
terrible.
crazy. All of us
Yeah.
just need to just dedicate a little time and say, you know what, I'm going to dedicate a couple hours to this, and then for the rest of my life, I can put this on the shelf and just go live my life worry free. I can go on the airplane without any regrets. We all
It's going to
have
help you
to do it.
sleep better at night,
It's
right?
so true.
is.
And I do take a little bit of difference when you say we're all going to die. I mean, I'm not aging. I mean, right? I mean,
Right. You notice
So-
my beard's coming in a little gray.
Tony, you cannot argue and debate with Jesus. He knows when you're going to
that's
die.
true. That's true.
And that could happen today. So be careful.
Yeah, that's true. No one knows the day or time. That's true.
That's right.
Well, that is a good example, isn't it, Brad?
It is. You know, in 2015, I think we met around 2015, CJ. And just like a month later, Shelly, my wife, and I were on a plane to Kansas City. I'm laughing as you're sharing this story. I don't even think I've shared this with you. On the way to Kansas City, at that time, our 2 daughters were still minors. And that's the conversation we had. You know what? We forgot to get with CJ. And I think I even emailed you from the plane saying, we need to get together because if this plane goes down, who's going to raise our kids? Who's going to do this? Now, of course, we had a trust in place, but like most good folks, it was outdated.
Right.
So
Yeah.
what advice would you give to clients or the public regarding, you know, hey, I have a trust, I have a will that's 5 years old, 10, 20 years old.
Yeah. I mean, a trust or an estate plan generally is no different than a vehicle. You drive it and you can have confidence, but you got to take it into the shop every once in a while. If you check in regularly with us, which we will do for our clients for free, we'll sit down and review everything for free for you. Then we probably just need little oil changes here and there. If you drive it too long and without kicking the tires, we need to swap out the engine. So the advice I'd give to clients is pay attention to your life. What big life events have occurred? Has a minor become the age of majority? Has a loved one died? Is someone getting in legal complicated issues? Does one of your adult children have a controlling spouse or spending problems? Is there maybe substance abuse issues going on? All of these things, all 3 of us on the show right now, we know someone who's going through one of those things. That happens on a daily basis. At that time, we should feel free to check in with our advisors and say, you know what, let's make a little tweak to the plan just to make it airtight. That's all that's needed. Just a little maintenance throughout time, and your plan's going to go smoothly.
You know, so true, CJ. And, you know, leading to January 1st, 2020, and then January 1st of 2023, the Secure Act, CARES Act 2.0 passed. And there was several provisions in there that impact estate planning. And one particular, which I want to talk to you about today, because I know I can relate, which I'll share a story here shortly. Tony has, CJ, you have too. And that's on the topics of power of attorneys. And, just about 3 weeks ago, my father-in-law from Missouri had a severe stroke. And now he's in rehab. And the best case scenario may be assisted living, but most likely memory care. The problem with this was he was the major caretaker for my mother-in-law. So we're flying back and forth to Missouri. My wife's there now dealing with this. And thank God, CJ, 2 years ago to the month, you prepared a trust, estate plan, power of attorneys for them, which became very helpful. But here's an area that we ran into, which I know some of our clients have. When it comes to power of attorneys, they're so important to have updated, because my wife is the power of attorney. But two, a roadblock we ran into, which I called you about, we had a financial institution, a bank, they didn't like the power of attorney. The verbiage that they in their legal department thought should be in it conflict with the law that you know better than anyone. So let's talk about, and I know, Tony, you have some aging parents in nursing homes, and the stress alone of dealing with just a loved one is enough. But when you're thrown into power of attorneys, financial decisions, healthcare decisions, very, very stressful. That's why you need to be proactive on this topic. So let's talk about the value and the need, and really, why does someone need a power of attorney?
Yeah. So generally speaking, when you're doing some estate planning, there's two types of powers of attorney. You got financial decisions, right, that need to be made. And then there's medical decisions that need to be made. So those powers of attorney, I tell you what, clients come in all the time and saying, CJ, it's been a couple of years since we talked. Does anything need to be updated? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. The most important document, in my opinion, that should be renewed from time to time is the financial power of attorney. That document is an elusive little creature. Here's why. Because just what Brad said, those financial powers of attorney are only as good as the entity receiving it will acknowledge it. And I'm talking about banks and financial institutions. They more often than not have their own little internal policies that don't comply with the law. But they're saying, nope, in order for us to accept that, it needs to say language that we want to see. Well, how would anyone know what such and such financial institutions wants, right? So it's important that from time to time you update those powers of attorney. The other thing we're seeing is that countless financial institutions right now are saying they will not honor powers of attorney that are older than 10 years. In fact, I ran into one the other day that said 5. They won't honor any powers of attorney that are older than 5 years. That's not what the law says, right? The law doesn't say that, but they said, no, that's our own internal policy. So how does someone rectify this? Well, if I had an aging parent, I would want to check in with my parents and say, hey, can you check with your financial institution just to make sure they have a copy of your power of attorney, and make sure they're giving you a thumbs up that it does what they want. A lot of people like to go back to their attorney and say, you drafted a bad power of attorney for me.
Yeah.
I mean, bad only to the extent that financial institution doesn't like it. So it doesn't hurt to be proactive and give these institutions a copy ahead of time and say, hey, I just want to make sure this is on file with you. It's gonna be fine when that time comes. And they may say, no, we want to see other language. If you have a good attorney, that attorney will say, yeah, let's tweak it. Let's make it whatever that institution wants. And we're always happy to tweak it and customize it for them.
Which you can do that, CJ, if you're proactive and you plan.
Right.
But this financial institution, unbelievable, said, well, we want this verbiage. Can your attorney add this? And then can your father-in-law and mother-in-law sign this? Right. Well, of course they can sign it, but they're incompetent. They have dementia. They're mentally not stable. That's why we need the power of attorney. So that would be a violation of a law if we went in there and had them try to sign something that they're, not capable of doing.
Yeah, it's the truth. So what we tell folks, and by the way, a financial power of attorney, for listeners that don't know, when do you need that financial power of attorney? Well, it's when you are losing your mental capacity to make decisions, and someone needs to step in and make those decisions for you. If you don't have one of those and you get dementia, and suddenly we learn that the house is still in your name, the accounts are still in your name, then in order for anyone to get access to pay your bills, manage your assets, things like sell your home, things like that, they would have to go through a full guardianship proceeding with the court and conservatorship proceeding. What a nightmare, all because you didn't have that piece of paper in your possession.
And much more costly too, right?
10 times the cost. So I tell clients, just, man, if there was, in fact, I tell my clients all the time, if I had $100 to spend on my estate planning, I would probably get a financial power of attorney before anything else, is what I would do. Yeah.
One thing I realized, and Tony, I don't know if you ran into this too, but some great advice that I've learned, not only from my in-laws, but my parents and other family members that we've assisted with, is yes, you have a good power of attorney for financial and medical, but for the financial power of attorney, most institutions today, what we're finding, they want to see a letter, at least one, maybe two, from their doctor stating that, yes, they are incapable of making financial decisions, medical healthcare decisions. So if you want to be even more proactive, prepare better, get that from your doctor, which is pretty simple, and attach that to every power of attorney and get that to the institution.
Well, that's a great idea. And I've had to do that with my dad. I have a financial power of attorney for my mom and dad. And it is tough. They always want more. It can be a pain. So getting it done in advance and figuring these things out beforehand and working with somebody who focuses and specializes on this. I'm not going to name names, but I know a guy, CJ Eagar, right? That could help you, right?
Happy to do it. We'll check them out for free just to make sure that they're up to speed.
That's great.
And like I said, finding someone who will make sure they're revising these every year just to make sure it's refreshed for whatever comes our way. We'll be ready.
Yeah.
Not only, the decision of maybe changing the person who's on your power of attorney now, but I know CJ, you do this a lot. And I just had a meeting last week, and this couple had a estate plan for 4 or 5 years. And I said, it may be a good idea to sit down with CJ and have him review it. Well, I'm not certain. And then I started asking about their distribution plan. And then you could see 2 light bulbs go off above their heads. Oh my gosh. Yes. One of our beneficiaries passed away. The other hasn't spoken to our family in 10 years. So we definitely would like to make some changes to our distribution plan. And that's where CJ, can come in and assist. And I guess, CJ, when you get to this point, just for our listeners, because I get asked this question, let's say they have an estate plan and they want to make some modifications. Do you have to go in there and just tear up the entire estate plan and start from the beginning?
That's such a good question. That's a really good question. So first and foremost, know that any of these documents can be amended, and which can usually be a fraction of the cost. I will say this though, it's funny, I've never talked about this on a radio show or anything like this, but I will say, practically speaking, there's a little behind the scenes for estate planning. Back in the day, when estate planning attorneys were drafting these documents, they were using typewriters and carbon copy machine, right? All the old school technology. Well, in order to save money, they would create amendments, right? Or codicils to wills. And that was a less expensive option because then the law firm didn't have to retype the entire thing. Nowadays, with computers, and we can save mass amounts of documents, it's almost less expensive and safer just to replace the power of attorney with a new one. So if your attorney tells you, hey, we're going to go ahead and just do a new power of attorney, don't think that they're price gouging you. It's actually smarter to do that. Just print off a new one. Just get a new fresh one. Whereas back in the day, they would do little amendments because it saved them from having to retype the whole thing. So I don't know if that's a weird information to give, but replacing documents nowadays is almost a more cost-effective thing to do rather than trying to wed these 2 separate documents into one.
Yeah.
But one area, now, CJ, we've talked about this a lot, and you do, which is amazing, free reviews for
All the time.
anyone. And there is a large amount of your industry that will look at an outdated estate plan and automatically go, well, this is not updated, that's not compliant. Let's do a brand new one. This is going to cost you $5,000. When in some
Yeah.
cases, it's necessary to redo the entire trust, but in some cases it's not, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, how do I say this? Don't assume just because something is old that it's outdated. And I have reviewed trusts that are 30 years old that are great, that are a slam dunk awesome. And my clients are shocked when I tell them, "Hey, don't waste your money. You're good. You're set. You're ready to go." Maybe there's a little something that we need to add to it to bring it up to 2025, but yeah, just because it's old doesn't mean it's bad. I've reviewed trusts that are 6 months old that are very bad. Okay. So
Wow.
don't let the date on these things scare you. More often than not, I let's admit though, after 40 years of life, there's probably some tweaks that you're going to want to make anyway. Life has just happened, and we need to make some adjustments. But yeah, don't ever just make sure you go find an attorney who will sit with you for free and give you an honest answer. And you'd be shocked how many clients I turn away and say, "You're good. Like, don't waste your money. Your plan is perfect."
Wow. And I can attest to that. That's why I value CJ Eagar and Copper Canyon Law. He's not only helped hundreds and hundreds of our clients, but probably thousands of referrals from them as well. And one last thing I'll add as we come to a close, while time flies when you're having fun,
Yep.
is, you know, as we come to an end and conclude, one thing I love of many with CJ is he's not your typical attorney where, oh, I have a question, but I don't want to email him. I don't want to call him because he'll bill me $300 an hour. So once you have a client, if they have a quick question, they call you, they email you, they text you, how much does that cost?
Well, you know what? Look, everyone, try to paint myself like I'm some hero, but I will do it for free. Here's why. Because we have such amazing clients. A lot of law firms can't function that way, and I get it. But we have such amazing clients. They connect with us when they know they need to connect. And that kind of meaningful conversation is worth its weight in gold. It's why I like doing what I do. So we love steering you clear of hazards, and we would do that for free all day long. So anytime you have a question, concern, call us. We're happy to answer those for free.
Great. Well, CJ, as we come to a conclude, Tony, I think this is one of the quickest and fastest shows we've had in a long time.
It flew by because it's an interesting topic, and CJ's a great guest. That's what really helps.
And, there's so much more that we didn't get to, so we'll just have to have CJ back. So CJ, thank you so much for your time. If you're out there and you have any questions for CJ and you want them answered, you can contact CJ at Copper Canyon Law, or you can go to our site, financialarmorshow.com. Again, that's financialarmorshow.com. Type in your question. I will forward that to CJ and you will get an answer back. Or you can do it the old-fashioned way. Pick up that phone. We have a toll-free number still, 888-390-5277, and ask those questions. Again, that's 888-390-5277. And we'll get those questions and you'll get the answers you deserve. And again, on this topic, and thank you again, CJ, be proactive. Stop procrastinating and prepare. Because if you wait to the last minute, it's going to be a nightmare. Plus, it's going to cost you probably 5 to 10 times more than what it could have if you would have planned.
That's true.
Huge.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Tony, Brad, it's always a pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you, CJ and Brad. Great show. Listeners and viewers, thanks for tuning in. That does it for today's episode of the Financial Armor Show with our host, Brad Cooper.
Thank you, Tony.